Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Perfect Facades. Rob Mitchell stood at his office window, watching the Seattle skyline blur through the autumn rain. At 42, he commanded respect in boardrooms across the Pacific Northwest. His security consulting firm, built from nothing after his discharge from Special Forces, now protected some of the region's most valuable assets. But today, something felt off. His phone buzzed. A text from his wife, Linda, running late for Emma's birthday dinner. "Start without me." Rob frowned. Linda had been distant lately, their 15-year marriage feeling more like a business arrangement. But missing their daughter's 18th birthday dinner? That was unlike her, even now. He drove to their Bellevue home, a sprawling Tudor-style house that Linda had insisted they buy 3 years ago. The expense had seemed excessive, but his business was thriving, and Linda's real estate career was supposedly booming. He'd learned not to question her financial decisions. Emma was in the kitchen, still in her East Side prep uniform, staring at a small velvet box on the granite counter. "Hey, birthday girl." Rob kissed her forehead. "Mom running late again?" Emma nodded, her usually bright demeanor subdued. She had Linda's auburn hair, but Rob's steel gray eyes that now held an unusual wariness. "She left this for me." Emma gestured to the box. "Said it was from Grandma Mitchell before she died." Rob's stomach tightened. His mother had died 6 months ago, leaving behind her modest jewelry collection. He'd given everything to Linda to distribute as she saw fit, but he didn't remember any expensive watch. "Let's see it," he said. Emma opened the box, revealing an elegant gold timepiece with a diamond-studded face. The brand was Cartier, easily worth $15,000. Rob's mother had been a schoolteacher. She'd never owned anything this valuable. "It's beautiful," Emma said quietly, "but I don't want to wear it." "Why not?" "It's gorgeous, and if it was Grandma's." "It wasn't." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Mom bought this yesterday. I saw the receipt in her purse." The revelation hit Rob like a physical blow. Linda had lied about his mother's legacy, using his grief to manipulate their daughter. But why give Emma such an expensive gift with a false story? "Are you sure?" Emma nodded. The receipt had yesterday's date. And she hesitated. "There's something else. Mom's been acting weird lately. Secretive. She thinks I don't notice, but I do." Rob studied his daughter's face. Emma had always been perceptive, mature beyond her years. If she sensed something wrong, there probably was. Linda arrived an hour later, breathless and apologetic. She was still stunning at 39, her auburn hair perfectly styled, her designer dress immaculate despite her supposed rush from work. Sorry. Client emergency." She kissed Emma's cheek, then Rob's, her lips cold. "Did you love the watch, sweetheart?" "It's beautiful, Mom." "Thank you." Emma's voice was steady, but Rob caught the slight tension. Over dinner, Linda dominated the conversation, talking about her latest real estate deals, her upcoming business trip to Portland, her plans for Emma's college preparation. She barely asked Emma about her own day, her own feelings about turning 18. Rob watched his wife carefully. Her stories seemed rehearsed, her attention scattered. She checked her phone frequently, claiming work emergencies, but he noticed she angled the screen away from him. After Emma went upstairs, Linda immediately started cleaning up, avoiding eye contact. "The watch is expensive," Rob said casually. "I don't remember Mom having anything like that." Linda's hands stilled for just a moment. "Oh, she kept it in her safety deposit box. She always said it was for Emma's 18th birthday." The lie came so smoothly that Rob felt a chill. His mother had never mentioned a safety deposit box, and he'd handled all her affairs after her death. "I'll have to thank the estate lawyer for finding it," he said, testing her. "Actually, she gave it to me years ago, before she got sick. I forgot about it until recently." Another lie, effortlessly delivered. Rob excused himself and went to his study. He'd built his business on reading people, on detecting deception and hidden threats. Every instinct he'd honed in the military and refined in the corporate world was screaming that something was wrong. He opened his laptop and began what he did best, investigation. Chapter 2. The First Thread. Rob spent the weekend in his study, ostensibly working on client reports while actually digging into his family's finances. What he found made him sick. Linda had been moving money, small amounts at first, then larger sums. Transfers to accounts he didn't recognize, cash withdrawals that seemed random but followed a pattern. Over the past year, nearly $200,000 had disappeared from their joint accounts. He'd been so focused on growing his business that he'd left the household finances entirely to Linda. She'd always been good with money, or so he'd thought. Now he realized she'd been systematically bleeding their assets. But for what? Monday morning, he called his lawyer, an old army buddy named Derek Pham, who now practiced family law. "Rob, good to hear from you. What's up? Hypothetically, if someone discovered their spouse was hiding money, what would you recommend?" The line went quiet. "This isn't hypothetical, is it?" "I don't know yet. I'm still gathering information." "Be careful, brother. Document everything, but don't tip your hand. If Linda's planning something, you want to be ahead of it, not reacting to it." That afternoon, Rob installed discreet surveillance software on his home network. If Linda was communicating with someone about their money, he'd find out. Emma came home from school in a foul mood, throwing her backpack down with unusual force. "Bad day?" Rob asked. "Mom called the school. She wants me to tour some colleges this weekend. Without you." Rob felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. "Which colleges?" "Portland State, University of Oregon. She says you're too busy with work to come along." "Portland, where Linda claimed she had business trips, where she'd been going monthly for the past 6 months. What if I told you I could make time?" Emma's face brightened for the first time in days. "Really? You'd want to come?" "Of course. It's important." He paused. "Emma, has Mom said anything about changes? About our family?" Emma looked uncomfortable. "She's been asking weird questions. About what I'd want if you and she ever separated. Which parent I'd rather live with." The blood drained from Rob's face. Linda wasn't just hiding money. She was preparing to leave him and take Emma with her. That evening, Linda announced her Portland trip was moved up to Thursday. "Just overnight. I'll be back Friday evening." Rob nodded calmly while inside, his mind raced. This was his chance to discover what she was really doing in Portland. Wednesday night, Emma knocked on his study door. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." She sat across from his desk, fidgeting with her hands. "That watch Mom gave me. There's something off about it." "What do you mean?" "It's heavier than it should be. And when I held it up to my ear, I could hear something inside. Not just ticking." She looked up at him with those steel gray eyes. "I think there's something hidden in it." Rob felt his pulse quicken. "Show me." Emma retrieved the watch from her room. In the bright light of his desk lamp, Rob examined it carefully. She was right. It was unusually heavy, and there was indeed a subtle electronic sound beyond the normal movement. Using a jeweler's loop from his equipment kit, he found what he was looking for, a tiny seam in the band, barely visible, but definitely there. "Dad, you're scaring me." "What's wrong?" Rob looked at his daughter, this brave, intelligent young woman who'd inherited his instincts for danger. "Emma, I need you to trust me. Something's not right, but I'm going to fix it. Can you do that?" She nodded solemnly. "Good. Tomorrow, while your mom's gone, we're going to find out what's really in this watch." Chapter 3. The Truth Unveiled. Thursday evening. With Linda safely in Portland, Rob and Emma sat in his study with the watch disassembled on his desk. Rob had military experience with surveillance equipment, and what he'd found inside the elegant timepiece made his blood boil. A GPS tracker, a miniature recording device, and a tiny camera, all state-of-the-art surveillance technology disguised as luxury jewelry. But the most damning evidence was the data chip hidden in the clasp. "She was spying on me," Emma whispered, staring at the tiny components. "My own mother was spying on me." Rob's jaw tightened. The chip contained weeks of surveillance data. Everywhere Emma had gone, every conversation she'd had within recording range. But more disturbing were the audio files timestamped from before Emma received the watch. Someone had been testing the device extensively. He plugged the chip into his computer, and what he heard made him reach for his phone to call the police, then stop. This required a more careful approach. The recordings weren't just about Emma. They included conversations between Linda and a man Rob didn't recognize, conversations that painted a picture of betrayal so complete it took his breath away. "The timing has to be perfect," Linda's voice said through his speakers. "Emma's 18th birthday gives us the legal window we need. And you're sure about the inheritance?" The male voice was younger, confident in an arrogant way. Rob's mother left him everything. The house in Spokane, the life insurance, even some old investments worth more than anyone realized. Combined with his business assets, we're talking about millions. "What about Emma? Won't she inherit directly?" "Not if Rob's declared unfit. I've been documenting his erratic behavior, his drinking." The surveillance footage from the watch will show him losing his temper with Emma, maybe even getting physical. Rob's hand clenched into a fist. Every word was a lie. He rarely drank, had never raised a hand to Emma, and his behavior had been anything but erratic. "You think she'll go along with it?" the man asked. "Emma adores him now, but children are malleable. A few months of the right kind of influence, some carefully edited recordings, and she'll believe whatever version of reality I present. By the time we file for divorce and custody, she'll be testifying against him herself." Emma gasped, tears streaming down her face. Rob put his arm around her, his own fury carefully controlled. The recording continued. "Tyler, once we're in control of his assets, Emma becomes a liability. She's smart enough to eventually figure out what really happened. So what are you suggesting? A tragic accident? Maybe a drug overdose. So many college kids experiment these days. Or perhaps she simply can't handle the trauma of discovering her father's abuse. Teen suicide rates are disturbingly high." Rob stopped the recording. Emma was shaking, and he wasn't sure he could control his rage if he heard much more. "She was going to kill me," Emma whispered. "My own mother was planning to kill me." "She's not your mother," Rob said quietly. "A mother protects her children. This woman is a predator who's been playing a long game." He fast-forwarded through more recordings, finding pieces of the puzzle. Tyler Brooks, Linda's lover and partner in this scheme, had a criminal background in fraud and identity theft. They'd been planning this for over a year, waiting for Emma to turn 18 so they could manipulate the legal system more easily. But there was more. Linda had been drugging Rob's coffee with mild sedatives, making him groggier and less sharp than usual. She'd been sabotaging his business relationships, planting seeds of doubt about his reliability. She'd even been secretly recording him during his rare moments of frustration, planning to edit them into evidence of instability. The final recording was the most chilling. "If the plan doesn't work, we have a backup. Tyler knows people who can make Rob disappear permanently. A carjacking gone wrong, maybe a home invasion. Seattle's crime rate makes it believable." Rob ejected the chip and looked at his daughter. Emma had stopped crying, and in her eyes, he saw a reflection of his own cold fury. "What do we do?" she asked. Rob smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "We give them exactly what they want, and then we destroy them." Chapter 4, Ghosts and Allies. Rob Mitchell hadn't survived 3 tours in Afghanistan and built a successful security business by being reactive. He'd learned long ago that the best defense was an overwhelming offense, and the predators threatening his family had just made a fatal error. They'd underestimated him. Friday morning, he sent Linda a text. "Take your time in Portland. Emma and I are having a great father-daughter weekend." Her response came quickly. "So glad. Love you both." The ease with which she lied still amazed him. While Emma was at school, Rob drove to a storage facility across town, one Linda didn't know about. Inside Unit 247, he kept what he called his insurance policies, equipment and documents from his military days that most civilians would consider paranormal. Rob had never been just a soldier. He'd been part of a classified unit that specialized in psychological warfare and deep cover operations. When he'd left the service, he'd officially surrendered all classified materials. Unofficially, some things had found their way into private storage, just in case. He pulled out a case containing sophisticated surveillance equipment, identity documents that could pass most casual inspections, and an encrypted satellite phone that connected to networks the government preferred to keep secret. His first call was to Derek Pham, his lawyer. "I need to accelerate our hypothetical conversation," Rob said when Derek answered. "How bad is it? Worse than adultery? I'm talking conspiracy to commit fraud, potentially attempted murder." Derek's professional calm cracked slightly. "Jesus, Rob. Are you safe? For now? But I need legal groundwork laid immediately. Asset protection, custody documentation, criminal evidence preservation. I'll need to see everything. Tonight. Your office, 8 p.m. Come alone." His second call was to Marcus Chun, another Army buddy who now worked private security in Los Angeles. Marcus specialized in the kind of problems that required creative solutions. "Rob? Damn, been too long. What's up? I need a favor. The kind we used to handle in the sandbox." Marcus's tone shifted instantly. "How deep?" "Deep enough that civilian law enforcement isn't equipped to handle it. I can be in Seattle by tomorrow." "What do you need?" "Surveillance, technical support, and maybe some intimidation work." "You got it, brother." Send me details. Rob's third call was to someone Linda would never suspect. Emma's guidance counselor at Eastside Prep, Mrs. Patricia Winters. Rob had served on the school board for 2 years, and Patricia was one of the few people who knew about his military background. Mr. Mitchell? Is everything all right? Patricia, I need to ask a favor that might sound strange. Has Linda contacted you recently about Emma's college plans or our family situation? Actually, yes. She called yesterday asking about documentation for Emma's applications. She seemed particularly interested in psychological evaluation protocols. Rob's jaw tightened. What kind of evaluations? She said you'd been under stress, that she was concerned about Emma's home environment. She wanted to know if the school had noticed any changes in Emma's behavior or academic performance. And have you? Not at all. Emma's been one of our most stable, high-achieving students. If anything, she seems more mature and focused this year. Patricia, I need you to document everything Linda has said to you. Date, time, exact words if possible. And if she contacts you again, please call me immediately. Mr. Mitchell, you're frightening me. Is Emma in danger? I'm making sure she isn't. When Emma came home from school, Rob was waiting with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant and a serious expression. We need to talk about what happens next, he said. Emma sat across from him, her face showing the same determined calm he'd seen in young soldiers facing their first real combat. I've been thinking about what we heard, she said. Mom's not just planning to hurt us financially. She wants to destroy who we are, make everyone believe we're something we're not. That's exactly right. So we're going to let her think she's succeeding while we build our own case. What do you mean? Rob outlined his plan. Emma would continue wearing the watch, but they'd modify it. Instead of just recording her, it would become a two-way intelligence source. They'd feed Linda false information while gathering evidence of her conspiracy. It's going to be dangerous, Rob warned. You'll have to pretend everything is normal, maybe even pretend to be turning against me. Can you handle that? Emma's smile was ice cold. Dad, I've been pretending to love her for months while she planned to kill me. I think I can manage a little acting. At 8 p.m., Rob met Derek at his law office downtown. Derek's face grew increasingly grim as Rob laid out the evidence. This is beyond criminal, Derek said after hearing the recordings. This is sociopathic, but it's also going to be difficult to prosecute. Why? Linda and Tyler haven't actually committed most of these crimes yet. Conspiracy charges are hard to prove, especially when one party is espoused with legitimate access to marital assets. Then we make sure they commit crimes we can prove. Derek looked uncomfortable. Rob, I understand you're angry, but I'm not angry, Rob interrupted. Anger is an emotion. This is strategy. Linda and Tyler think they're predators, but they've never faced real prey that fights back. They're about to learn the difference between targeting civilians and targeting someone with my skill set. What are you planning? Rob's smile was the same expression that had once terrified enemy combatants in Afghanistan. I'm going to give them everything they think they want, and I'm going to make them destroy themselves getting it. Chapter 5, Setting the Trap. Saturday morning, Linda returned from Portland with an energy Rob hadn't seen in months. She was almost giddy as she unpacked her overnight bag, chattering about her successful business meetings and a new development opportunity. How was your father-daughter time? She asked Emma at breakfast. Good, Emma said with just the right amount of teenage indifference. Dad was working mostly. We ordered pizza and watched Netflix. Rob caught the subtle approval in Linda's eyes. She thought Emma was already beginning to distance herself from him. Speaking of work, Linda continued, I might need to spend more time in Portland over the next few months. There's a huge commercial development project that could really boost my career. More time away? Rob asked, injecting a note of irritation into his voice. It's temporary, Linda said quickly. Just until the project launches. You understand how important this is for our future. Their future. The irony was staggering. Sunday evening, after Linda had gone to bed early claiming exhaustion, Rob and Emma implemented the next phase of their plan. Emma wore the modified watch to school Monday, but now it was transmitting carefully crafted performances. During lunch, Emma called Rob from the school counselor's office, knowing the watch would record everything. Dad, I need to talk to you about something, she said, her voice carefully modulated to sound upset. What's wrong? I heard you and Mom fighting last night. Why didn't you tell me you've been having money problems? Rob had never fought with Linda about money, but the watch wouldn't capture that context. Emma, That's not something you need to worry about. But I do worry. And lately, you've been different. Angrier. Mom says it's stress, but your mother says a lot of things. What's that supposed to mean? Rob let silence hang for a moment, then sighed heavily. Nothing. We'll talk when you get home. It was all theater, but theater designed to feed Linda's narrative while providing Rob with documented evidence of her surveillance. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus Chin arrived in Seattle. To anyone watching, he was just an old friend visiting, but Rob knew better. Marcus had spent the past 5 years building a private security company that specialized in asset recovery for clients who preferred to avoid traditional law enforcement. They met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, far from Rob's usual haunts. "You look good for a man whose wife is trying to kill him," Marcus said with characteristic directness. "She hasn't succeeded yet." Marcus slid a tablet across the table. "I ran background checks on Linda and Tyler Brooks. Your wife's boyfriend has an interesting history." Rob scrolled through the report. Tyler's criminal record was more extensive than the recordings had revealed. Fraud, identity theft, and suspicion in 2 cases involving mysterious deaths of wealthy older women. Both cases had been closed due to lack of evidence, but the pattern was clear. "He's done this before," Rob said. "Multiple times. Linda's not his first wealthy mark, and if this works, she won't be his last." "What about associates?" "That's where it gets interesting." Marcus pointed to a section of the report. "Tyler's connected to a network of people who specialize in inheritance fraud. They target individuals with significant assets, usually older or emotionally vulnerable people." "I'm neither old nor vulnerable." "No, but you are isolated. Linda's been systematically cutting you off from friends and colleagues. Your business partners think you've become unreliable. Your social circle believes you're having marital problems that are affecting your judgment." Rob felt a chill. "How do you know that?" "I made some calls. Linda's been very busy spreading rumors about your mental state, your drinking, your temper. She's been building a narrative for months." The sophistication of the operation was impressive and terrifying. Linda and Tyler hadn't just planned to steal his money. They'd planned to destroy his entire identity, leaving him with no allies and no credibility when he tried to fight back. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I think Tyler and his network have been watching you for longer than you realize. Some of your business troubles over the past year, the clients who suddenly decided to go with competitors, that wasn't bad luck or market forces. They've been sabotaging me. Systematically. They needed you weakened financially and professionally before they made their final move." Rob closed the tablet, his mind racing through the implications. This wasn't just about his marriage or his money. This was about his life's work, his reputation, everything he'd built since leaving the military. "What do you recommend?" he asked. Marcus's smile was predatory. "I recommend we remind these people why it's dangerous to target soldiers." Wednesday evening, Rob put the next phase of his plan into motion. He came home visibly drunk for the first time in years, stumbling slightly and speaking with the careful precision of someone trying to hide their intoxication. Linda was immediately solicitous, helping him to his chair, bringing him water, asking about his day with exaggerated concern. "Rough client meeting," Rob slurred slightly. "Lost another account. They said I seemed unstable." He watched Linda's face carefully and caught the flash of satisfaction she tried to hide. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. But maybe you should consider that your stress levels have been affecting your work." "Maybe you're right." Rob let his voice crack slightly. "Maybe I'm not handling things as well as I thought." Emma, who had been watching from the doorway, approached with Oscar-worthy concern. "Dad, are you okay? You've been acting really weird lately." Rob looked at his daughter with deliberately unfocused eyes. "Weird how?" "Angry. Paranoid. Yesterday you accused Mom of moving money around, but when she showed you the bank statements, everything was exactly where it should be. Another lie, but one that would sound convincing on surveillance recordings." "I don't remember that," Rob said, which was true. Linda moved closer, her voice gentle and understanding. "Rob, I think you should talk to someone. A professional. This level of stress isn't healthy." "A shrink? You think I'm crazy?" "Not crazy. Just overwhelmed. There's no shame in getting help." Rob nodded slowly, as if considering her suggestion. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I need help." In the kitchen, Linda squeezed Emma's shoulder with what looked like maternal comfort, but felt like victory. Chapter 6. Infiltration. Dr. Angela Morrison was one of the most respected psychiatrists in Seattle, with a client list that included several prominent business leaders. She was also, unknown to Linda, a former Army psychiatrist who had worked with Rob's unit during their deployment in Afghanistan. When Linda called to schedule an appointment for her troubled husband, Dr. Morrison listened carefully to her description of Rob's erratic behavior, his drinking, his paranoid accusations about their marriage. "He's become increasingly unstable," Linda explained, her voice heavy with fake concern. "I'm worried about our daughter's safety." "I see," Dr. Morrison said neutrally. "And he's agreed to these sessions?" "Reluctantly. I think deep down he knows he needs help." What Linda didn't know was that Rob had contacted Dr. Morrison the day before, explaining the real situation and asking for her help in documenting Linda's manipulation tactics. Thursday afternoon, Rob arrived at Dr. Morrison's office playing the role of a reluctant, defensive patient. "I don't know why I'm here," he said, slumping in the chair across from her desk. "Linda thinks I have anger management issues." "What do you think?" "I think my wife has been lying to me, and when I tried to call her on it, she decided I was mentally ill." Dr. Morrison made notes that would read as paranoid delusions to anyone who didn't know the truth. "Can you tell me about these lies?" Rob launched into a carefully crafted narrative that mixed real concerns with deliberately irrational-sounding accusations. To Linda's surveillance, it would sound like the rantings of a man losing his grip on reality. After the session, Dr. Morrison called Linda with her assessment. "Your husband is definitely struggling," she said. "He's exhibiting signs of paranoid thinking, possibly early-stage mental breakdown. I'd like to see him twice a week initially." Linda's relief was audible. "Is there anything I should be doing to help?" "Document any concerning behavior. Keep a journal of his actions, his statements. If he becomes threatening or violent, don't hesitate to call for help." "Threatening? Do you think he might become dangerous?" "Paranoid individuals can sometimes lash out when they feel cornered. Just be careful and trust your instincts." That evening, Linda was almost cheerful as she prepared dinner. She'd moved another step closer to having Rob declared mentally incompetent, and the psychiatrist had essentially given her permission to document his dangerous behavior. But Linda wasn't the only one documenting things. Friday morning, while Linda was at work and Emma was at school, Marcus executed a plan that would have impressed their old commanding officers. Using equipment that technically didn't exist, he infiltrated Tyler Brooks's apartment in Portland. What he found confirmed their worst suspicions. Tyler's computer contained detailed files on Rob's business, his finances, his personal history. There were psychological profiles, surveillance photos, and most damning of all, a timeline for Project Mitchell that outlined every step of their plan. But Marcus also found something unexpected. Tyler and Linda weren't the top of this organization. They were middle management in a larger operation that had successfully executed similar schemes at least 6 times in the past 3 years. The target list contained 12 names, including 2 prominent Seattle businessmen who had died in accidents within the past 18 months. Marcus photographed everything, then installed monitoring software that would track Tyler's communications and movements. When he left the apartment 3 hours later, Tyler would never know he'd been there. Saturday evening, Linda announced another Portland trip. "This project is really heating up," she said. "I might need to start spending several days a week down there." "When?" Rob asked. "Starting Monday. I'll probably be gone until Thursday." "Perfect." Rob needed uninterrupted time to implement the final phase of his plan. Sunday dinner was a surreal performance. Linda played the devoted wife caring for her troubled husband. Emma played the concerned daughter walking on eggshells around her father. Rob played the man slowly losing his grip on reality. But underneath the performance, they were all predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. After Emma went to bed, Linda sat next to Rob on the couch, placing her hand on his arm with fake tenderness. "I know things have been difficult lately," she said, "but I want you to know that Emma and I love you, no matter what." Rob looked into the eyes of the woman who had promised to love and honor him 15 years ago, the woman who was now planning his destruction with the same care she'd once planned their wedding. "I love you too," he said, and for the first time in their marriage, the words were completely honest. He did love her. He loved the memory of who she'd been, or who he'd thought she was. But love and justice were different things, and Linda was about to learn that distinction in the most brutal way possible. Monday morning, Linda left for Portland with a goodbye kiss that tasted like betrayal. Rob watched her drive away, then turned to Emma. Phase 3 starts now, he said. Emma's smile was as cold as winter rain. Let's destroy them. Chapter 7. The net closes. Tuesday morning brought the kind of gray Seattle drizzle that seemed to seep into everything, and Rob Mitchell felt it was appropriate weather for what he was about to unleash. Linda was safely in Portland, presumably with Tyler, executing their plans while believing Rob was spiraling into paranoid instability. They had no idea he was about to turn their carefully constructed scheme into their worst nightmare. At 8 a.m., Derek Pham filed a motion with King County Superior Court. To casual observers, it appeared to be a standard petition for psychological evaluation and temporary asset protection, exactly what Linda's manipulation had been building toward. But Derek had crafted the language carefully. The petition requested court-ordered psychiatric evaluation not for Rob, but for Linda, based on concerning behavior patterns that suggest potential harm to minor children and financial impropriety. Attached to the petition were dozens of exhibits. The surveillance recordings from the watch, financial records showing systematic asset diversion, and Dr. Morrison's professional assessment that Linda exhibited classic signs of antisocial personality disorder with narcissistic and manipulative tendencies. The genius of the filing was its timing. Linda couldn't respond to allegations she didn't know existed, and by the time she discovered the legal action, the court would have already issued temporary protective orders. At 10 a.m., Marcus executed Phase 2 of their counteroffensive. Using Tyler's surveillance data, he'd identified 3 other current targets of their inheritance fraud network. Instead of warning the victims directly, which would have alerted Tyler and Linda, he arranged for anonymous tips to be delivered to the FBI's white-collar crime division in 3 different cities. By noon, federal agents were knocking on doors in Portland, Denver, and Phoenix, asking very specific questions about unusual deaths, suspicious beneficiaries, and financial irregularities that matched the exact pattern of Tyler's previous operations. Emma's role was perhaps the most crucial. At East Side Prep, she met with Mrs. Winters, the guidance counselor, and delivered a performance worthy of a professional actress. "I'm scared," Emma said, allowing tears to fill her eyes. "My mom's been saying terrible things about Dad, trying to get me to lie about him. She wants me to say he's been violent, but he's never touched me, never even raised his voice." Mrs. Winters, who had been primed by Rob's earlier conversation, documented everything carefully. "She showed me this watch, said it was from Grandma Mitchell, but I know it wasn't. And there's something electronic inside it. Mom's been watching me, recording everything I do." Emma handed over the watch, the modified version that contained only the evidence they wanted Linda to have, not the damning recordings of Linda's real plans. "Emma, this is very serious. Are you saying your mother has been surveilling you without your knowledge?" "Yes, and she's been asking me to spy on Dad too. She wants me to report everything he says and does." Within an hour, Child Protective Services had been notified of potential child endangerment involving electronic surveillance of a minor. At 2 p.m., Rob's business phone rang. The caller was Special Agent Sarah Kim from the FBI Seattle office. "Mr. Mitchell, we're investigating a matter that may involve your family. Could you come in for an interview?" Rob expressed exactly the right amount of surprise and concern. "Of course. Is everyone safe? We'll discuss everything when you arrive. Can you be here in an hour?" The FBI interview was a careful dance. Rob provided evidence of Linda's financial manipulation and Tyler's criminal background while playing the role of a concerned husband who'd only recently discovered his wife's betrayal. Agent Kim was experienced enough to recognize both the sophistication of Linda's scheme and the military precision of Rob's counter-investigation. "Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, this evidence collection is remarkably thorough, almost professional-level surveillance work." "Agent Kim, I spent 12 years in the Army learning how to identify and neutralize threats. When I realized my family was being targeted by criminals, I used those skills to protect us." "And you didn't think to contact law enforcement immediately?" Rob's expression hardened. "Agent Kim, my wife was systematically positioning herself to have me declared mentally incompetent while planning to murder my daughter. If I'd come to you with suspicions and no evidence, what would have happened?" Agent Kim nodded slowly. She'd seen enough domestic cases to know he was right. Wednesday morning, Tyler Brooks was arrested in Portland on federal charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. The arrest was coordinated with simultaneous raids on 3 other properties connected to the inheritance fraud network. Linda's first indication that her world was collapsing came when Tyler's phone went straight to voicemail. Her second indication was the King County Sheriff's deputy who appeared at her Portland hotel at 11 a.m. with a court order requiring her immediate return to Seattle. By Wednesday evening, Linda was sitting in Derek Pham's conference room, faced with evidence of crimes she didn't even know had been discovered. "This is impossible," she kept saying as Derek played the surveillance recordings. "This is edited. It's fake." "Mrs. Mitchell," Derek said calmly, "these recordings were authenticated by 3 independent forensic analysts. The metadata confirms they're original and unaltered." Linda's composure finally cracked when she heard her own voice discussing Emma's planned accident. "I never said that. I would never hurt Emma." "The evidence suggests otherwise," Derek replied. "Your husband is prepared to offer you a choice." Rob entered the conference room, his presence filling the space like a cold front. Linda looked at him with a mixture of fear and rage. "You did this," she hissed. "You manipulated everything." "I documented everything," Rob corrected. "You manipulated our marriage, our daughter, our finances, and our lives. I simply ensured there would be consequences." Derek slid a document across the table. "This is a settlement agreement. You surrender all claims to marital assets, relinquish parental rights to Emma, and submit to permanent psychiatric evaluation. In exchange, Rob agrees not to pursue criminal charges for the state-level crimes you committed." "State-level crimes?" Linda's voice was shrill. "The federal charges are out of our hands," Rob said. "Tyler's arrest this morning implicated you in a multi-state conspiracy. Those charges will proceed regardless of this agreement." Linda stared at the document, her face cycling through emotions like a broken slot machine. "Emma will never forgive you for this. I'm her mother." "No." Emma's voice came from the doorway as she entered with Mrs. Winters and a court-appointed advocate. "You're the woman who planned to kill me for money. Dad's the one who saved my life." The final confrontation was swift and brutal. Faced with overwhelming evidence and federal prosecution, Linda signed the settlement agreement. She would leave Seattle immediately, surrender all assets, and have no contact with Emma or Rob. As deputies escorted her from the building, she turned back once. "This isn't over, Rob. I'll find a way to." "Linda," Rob interrupted, his voice carrying the kind of absolute authority that had once commanded soldiers in combat zones. "If you ever come near my daughter again, if you ever threaten my family in any way, I will finish what Tyler started. And unlike him, I won't be arrested for it." The deputies continued escorting her out, but Rob's message was clear. Linda had mistaken him for a civilian target, soft and vulnerable. She'd learned too late that some predators were better at hunting than others. Chapter 8. Unraveling the Network. The fall of Linda and Tyler Brooks was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, federal investigations unraveled an inheritance fraud network that had operated across 7 states for nearly 5 years. Rob found himself working closely with the FBI as they mapped the organization's structure. His military intelligence background made him an invaluable consultant, and Agent Kim quickly recognized that his methodical approach to evidence gathering had given them their strongest case ever against this type of criminal enterprise. "Inheritance fraud is usually impossible to prosecute," she explained during one of their meetings. "The victims are dead, the beneficiaries appear legitimate, and the paper trail is carefully constructed. But your wife and her partner made a critical error. They got greedy," Rob said. "More than that, they underestimated their target. Most inheritance fraudsters prey on isolated elderly people or emotionally vulnerable individuals. They've never faced someone with your skill set." The network had operated by identifying wealthy individuals with complex family situations, recent divorces, strained relationships with adult children, elderly people with substantial assets, but limited social connections. Tyler and his associates would infiltrate these targets' lives, often through romantic relationships, then systematically isolate them while positioning themselves as heirs. Linda's role had been specifically to handle younger, still vital targets who required more sophisticated psychological manipulation. Rob wasn't her first husband, and Tyler wasn't her first criminal partner. "How many people did they kill?" Emma asked during one of their evening debriefings. Rob and Agent Kim exchanged glances. The investigation had identified at least 12 suspicious deaths over the past 3 years, all involving wealthy individuals who had recently changed their wills to benefit new romantic partners or financial advisors. We may never know the exact number, Agent Kim said gently. But because of your father's actions, this network is finished. Emma nodded solemnly. She'd been handling the revelations about her mother with remarkable maturity, but Rob could see the toll it was taking. Learning that the woman who raised you was capable of planning your murder wasn't something any 18-year-old should have to process. Dr. Morrison had been providing counseling sessions, and Emma was gradually working through the complex emotions of betrayal, grief, and anger. The hardest part, she told Rob, wasn't accepting that Linda was evil. It was mourning the mother she'd thought she had. Thursday afternoon brought unexpected news. Marcus called from Portland with an update that changed everything. Rob, you need to know something. Tyler's talking. What do you mean? He's trying to cut a deal with federal prosecutors. He's claiming Linda was the mastermind, that she recruited him, that he was just following her orders. Rob felt his blood pressure spike. Even from prison, Linda was still trying to manipulate the system. How credible is his story? On the surface? Pretty credible. Linda was the primary contact with their organization's leadership. She managed the financial aspects. Tyler handled the more physical elements of their operations. You mean the murders? Yeah. But here's the thing. Tyler's story doesn't match the evidence we gathered. The surveillance recordings show Linda taking orders from Tyler, not giving them. His version only works if you ignore everything your investigation uncovered. That evening, Rob made a decision that would have horrified him 6 months earlier, but now seemed like simple justice. He called Agent Kim. I want to testify at Tyler's hearing. Rob, that's not necessary. We have enough evidence to. Agent Kim, Tyler Brooks was planning to murder my daughter. I want to look him in the eye when I explain exactly how his organization operated and exactly what evidence we have about his specific role in planning Emma's death. Friday morning, Rob sat across from Tyler Brooks in a federal courthouse conference room. Tyler was exactly what Rob had expected: arrogant, manipulative, and completely without remorse. He was also significantly smaller than his confident voice on the surveillance recordings had suggested. Mr. Mitchell, Tyler said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, I want you to know that I tried to talk Linda out of involving Emma. I never wanted to hurt your daughter. Rob studied Tyler for a long moment, then spoke with the kind of calm precision that made federal prosecutors and defense attorneys equally nervous. Mr. Brooks, I've listened to recordings of you planning my daughter's murder. I've seen financial records showing you've profited from at least 6 suspicious deaths in the past 3 years. I've reviewed case files suggesting you've been operating inheritance fraud schemes since 2019. Tyler's confident facade cracked slightly. You have 2 choices, Rob continued. You can take responsibility for your crimes, serve your sentence, and disappear forever. Or you can continue trying to manipulate the system and blame others for your actions. And if I choose the second option? Rob's smile was the same expression that had once terrified enemy combatants. Then I will spend the rest of my life ensuring that you never harm another family. I have resources, Mr. Brooks. I have skills. And I have absolutely nothing left to lose where you're concerned. Tyler's lawyers started to object, but Tyler held up a hand. What are you saying exactly? I'm saying that federal prison might be the safest place for you to be. Because if you ever threaten my family again, if you ever contact Emma or attempt any kind of retaliation, you'll discover that some people are much better at this kind of warfare than others. The room fell silent. Tyler stared at Rob for a long moment, then turned to his lawyer. I want to accept the original plea agreement, he said quietly. Agent Kim later told Rob that Tyler's complete capitulation was unprecedented. Most career criminals fight the charges until the end. He folded immediately after talking to you. He recognized a superior predator, Rob said simply. Chapter 9, New Foundations. 6 months later, Rob stood in the kitchen of their Bellevue home, making coffee in the early morning quiet. Emma was upstairs getting ready for her final semester at Eastside Prep, and for the first time in years, their home felt genuinely peaceful. Linda was serving 15 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. Tyler had received 25 years for his role in the inheritance fraud network, including several murder charges. The organization they'd been part of had been completely dismantled, with prosecutions spanning multiple states. Emma appeared in the kitchen, dressed for school, but moving with the confident grace of someone who'd survived something terrible and emerged stronger. "Morning, Dad." "Morning. Sleep well?" "Actually, yeah. No nightmares for 3 weeks running." She poured herself orange juice. "Dr. Morrison says that's a good sign." Rob nodded. Emma's therapy sessions had been crucial in helping her process the trauma of discovering her mother's betrayal. Dr. Morrison had warned that recovery would be a long process, but Emma's resilience continued to amaze everyone involved. "Speaking of good signs," Emma continued, "I got accepted to Georgetown." Rob turned from the coffee maker, his face breaking into the first genuine smile he'd worn in months. "Emma, that's incredible. When did you find out?" "Yesterday. I wanted to surprise you." She paused. "I know it's expensive, and with everything that happened with the finances." "Emma." Rob set down his coffee cup and looked at his daughter seriously. "Your education is the most important investment I can make. Georgetown is perfect for pre-law, and you're going to be an amazing attorney." Emma had decided to study law after watching the federal prosecution of Linda and Tyler. She wanted to specialize in white-collar crime, specifically targeting the kind of inheritance fraud schemes that had nearly destroyed their family. "I want to make sure other families don't go through what we did," she told Rob. "And I want to make sure people like Tyler and Linda don't get second chances." The doorbell rang at 7:30 a.m., which was unusual. Rob checked the security monitor and saw Derek Pham standing on their front porch, holding a manila envelope. "Derek? What brings you by so early?" "Good news that couldn't wait." Derek handed him the envelope. "The asset recovery is complete. Every penny they stole has been recovered, plus substantial penalties from the network's other accounts." Rob opened the envelope and stared at the financial summary. The amount was significantly larger than what had been stolen from their accounts. "This is more than they took." Federal asset forfeiture laws. When criminal organizations are dismantled, victims can claim compensation from the entire organization's assets, not just what was directly stolen from them. Emma looked over Rob's shoulder at the document. "That's enough to pay for Georgetown 4 times over." "It's enough to pay for Georgetown and start a foundation," Rob said thoughtfully. Over breakfast, they discussed the foundation idea. Rob wanted to create an organization that would help families targeted by inheritance fraud, providing legal assistance and investigative resources to people who couldn't afford them. "We could call it the Emma Mitchell Foundation," Rob suggested. "Absolutely not," Emma said firmly. "This is your idea, your victory. If anything, it should be the Robert Mitchell Foundation." "How about the Mitchell Family Foundation?" Derek suggested. "It represents both of your contributions to bringing down this network." That afternoon, Rob received an unexpected call from Agent Kim. "Rob, I have an unusual proposal for you." "I'm listening." "The FBI is creating a new task force focused on inheritance fraud and elder abuse. We need someone with your investigative background and your understanding of how these networks operate." "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to do this professionally. Consultant level, good pay, flexible schedule. You'd work cases similar to what you experienced, helping families who are being targeted." Rob considered the offer. His security consulting business was thriving again. The publicity from the federal case had actually attracted new clients who wanted someone capable of handling sophisticated threats. But the idea of helping other families avoid what his had endured was compelling. "I'll think about it." That evening, Rob and Emma sat on their back deck, watching the Seattle skyline light up as dusk settled over Puget Sound. Emma was working on college applications, and Rob was reviewing financial documents for the foundation. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever regret how far you took the revenge against Linda and Tyler?" Rob considered the question carefully. "Do you?" "No. They were planning to kill me and destroy you. They deserved everything they got." Emma paused. "But sometimes I wonder if you feel guilty about being so thorough." Rob looked at his daughter, this remarkable young woman who'd inherited his strength and his sense of justice. "Emma, there are predators in this world who target good people because they believe good people won't fight back effectively. Linda and Tyler spent years destroying families because they thought their victims would be too civilized, too restrained, or too naive to respond with overwhelming force. And they were wrong about us." "They were wrong about us," Rob confirmed. "I don't feel guilty about protecting our family or ensuring they could never hurt anyone else. I feel proud that we turned their own tactics against them and dismantled their entire operation." Emma nodded thoughtfully. I want to be like you when I'm older. Not just smart or successful, but someone who protects people who can't protect themselves. You're already like that, Rob said. You've been protecting people since you were brave enough to tell me about the watch. 6 months later, the Mitchell Family Foundation was officially launched with Emma cutting the ribbon at their downtown Seattle office. The foundation's first case involved an elderly man in Portland whose new girlfriend was systematically isolating him from his family while positioning herself as his sole heir. Rob, now working part-time with the FBI task force, led the investigation that uncovered another inheritance fraud network with connections to Tyler's old organization. Emma started at Georgetown in the fall, where she quickly distinguished herself in criminal justice courses and earned a position with the university's legal aid clinic. During Thanksgiving break, she came home to find Rob preparing dinner for an unusual guest, Agent Kim, who had become something more than a professional colleague over the months of working together. Dad's got a girlfriend, Emma announced with a grin. Dad's got a friend who happens to be female, Rob corrected, but his smile suggested Emma wasn't entirely wrong. A friend who he cooks elaborate dinners for and talks to every night on the phone, Emma added. Sarah Kim was everything Linda hadn't been: honest, direct, and dedicated to protecting people rather than exploiting them. Her work with the FBI task force had saved dozens of families from the kind of destruction the Mitchells had experienced. That Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside their Bellevue home, Rob and Emma exchanged gifts by the fireplace. Emma gave him a framed photo of the two of them at the foundation's opening ceremony. Rob gave Emma a new watch, a simple, elegant timepiece with no hidden electronics. Just tells time, he said with a smile. Perfect, Emma replied. As they sat together in comfortable silence, Rob reflected on how completely their lives had changed. A year ago, he'd been a successful businessman trapped in a marriage to a woman planning his destruction. Now he was a federal consultant, foundation director, and most importantly, the father of a remarkable young woman who shared his commitment to justice. Linda sometimes wrote letters from prison, manipulative attempts to reconnect with Emma or convince Rob to visit. Neither of them had responded to a single letter. Tyler had tried to appeal his sentence twice. Both appeals had been denied. The inheritance fraud network they'd been part of had been completely eliminated, with prosecutions resulting in over 200 years of combined prison sentences. Most importantly, the Mitchell Family Foundation had helped 17 families avoid similar schemes, working with law enforcement to identify and stop inheritance fraudsters before they could complete their plans. Dad, Emma said as they prepared for bed, I'm proud of us. Of what we did, what we built, who we became. I'm proud of us too, Rob replied. And I'm proud that when evil people tried to destroy our family, we didn't just survive. We made the world safer for other families. As Rob turned off the lights and headed upstairs, he paused at the family photos lining the hallway. The pictures from before, the ones that included Linda, had been removed months ago. The new photos showed him and Emma at foundation events, FBI ceremonies, Georgetown orientation, and quiet family moments. It was a different family than the one he'd thought he had a year ago, but it was a better one. Built on truth instead of lies, strength instead of manipulation, and justice instead of victimhood. Rob Mitchell had learned that sometimes the best revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about building something better from the ashes of what had been destroyed. And in protecting his daughter from predators, he discovered that the most important battle wasn't against external enemies, but for the kind of people you chose to become when faced with evil. Emma was right to be proud of them. They had faced the worst kind of betrayal and responded not with weakness or forgiveness, but with intelligent, overwhelming force that had eliminated the threat and protected countless other families. Some people deserved forgiveness. Others deserved justice. And Rob Mitchell had ensured that Linda and Tyler Brooks had received exactly what they deserved. The watch that had revealed their betrayal now sat in an FBI evidence locker, a reminder that predators who underestimated their prey rarely survived the encounter. And in the Mitchell house, where a father and daughter had rebuilt their lives on foundations of truth and mutual respect, time moved forward toward a future they'd earned through courage, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to be victims.